In this video, we're going to see how we can extend our own libraries and expose them by creating a palette into the nCoDE runtime. Okay, so how would you be able to add your own tools, the own services that you create within NetKernel, and expose them as items in a palette in nCoDE so that developers can just use them as composite development tools? Let's look at a library that comes with NetKernel and that we haven't yet converted to have a palette. I'll show you how we go through the process. Here I've got a library called XML feeds. This is actually quite an old library that was created as a community project about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, and it was basically a set of tools for doing RSS atom feed processing. So it was a set of discrete components, and using the low-level NetKernel stuff we could create processes that were analogous equivalent to things like Yahoo Pipes processing. So how would we make that XML feeds toolset available inside the NetKernel nCoDE environment? First of all, we need to expose a palette. So we go to etc system and we create a new file, and we call it CDE palette.xml, and we need to have palette root tag, and let's create a group for this palette, and we'll call it feeds, and the ID is feeds. Okay, so now look at our module XML for this toolset, and we see it's a library. Its URI of the address space is XML feeds, and we see it's got a bunch of low-level accesses defined against Java classes. So we see we have an ID of xml.feeds.feedUnion, feed unique, feed truncate, feed sort, feed set, feed info, etc., etc. So let's just add a few of these into a palette. So let's, for example, select that ID, go to our CDE palette. Now I can't remember the name of the tab. I think it's endpoint ID equals feed union and group equals feeds. So we want this tool to appear in the feeds group. So let's save that. And now I have to do one more thing, which is this CDE palette needs to be exposed to the world, because at the moment etc CDE palette isn't shared with anybody, it's just internally private. So I need to go down and find the exposed system tools, so system resources. So we see we've got etc system books docs. So I need to add that resource to the address space so that it can be seen by the world. The module gets recommissioned, and we see, if I now go to the tool up here, because that space has changed, notice now in my list I've got a set of tools called XML RSS atom feeds. So I'm going to select that, add that to my list. The system reconfigures itself because it's all done with dynamic imports, and we see down here there's feeds, and we see we have XML feed union. So now I have a feed, and I can create a union, etc., etc. So it's very straightforward to add tools. Let me just complete that by adding a few more, and we see that this is fully dynamic now that we've got the endpoint exposed. We've got several of these endpoints in the system. I can remember the names of them, I think. Feed sort, feed unique. And if I now just reload this page, take a look down at the feeds. We notice I've got all those tools in the system, and if they've got metadata with them, then their documentation is just discovered automatically. So I don't need to do anything other than just share them with the world by putting them in a palette, and all the rest is just existing NetKernel plumbing that you've already been doing for the longest time. So exposing stuff into nCoDE is like falling off a log. So we've seen how we can take existing libraries, we can add our own capabilities to create our own libraries, and we can use this graphical environment to create composite systems using NetKernel. But one of the things we haven't yet seen is how the resource-oriented approach allows us to build highly constrained environments which are essentially safe enough to give to non-programmers, non-developers. So far what we've been doing with the tool is using the mode where we've been allowing dynamic imports to be selected. So we've exposed and used all of these tools, which is a somewhat dangerous way of going about things. But let's, for example, imagine that feed library I just added to the system was, let's say it was a set of sales tools, sales endpoints, and now we see we've got a set of very safe tools available to the system. And if these were sales components, say perhaps this is the instantaneous set of sales for the day, and this is a target endpoint that's going to be used to set a live dynamic set of sales targets for a sales force, and there's a whole set of online sales operations guys working from home, and the executive in charge of the sales wants to dynamically tune the current day's target. Well, you can give him an environment like this, you can eliminate any of these other ones and just give him this very simple palette of things that he's capable of operating, and allow them, the sales executive, to create the application process that they want to give to their sales teams, or tune it, or tweak it, or adapt it, or adjust it on the fly. And so what we have is the ability with this paletted environment, because of the underlying resource-oriented abstraction, we can expose business resources, business information, directly into the hands of the business operations people who have the information knowledge about what they're trying to do with the business. And each of these is a black box that can be developed by a development team, and controlled and made completely safe, and provided in a completely safe environment. And of course this response is to whatever the context of wherever this tool is being exposed. So this could be, for example, exposed as a RESTful web service, and we've been testing it and using it in our test harness RESTfully with that. But it could equally be exposed to JMS, or it could be exposed to a transform like we saw in the very first thing that turns it into a table and puts it into a web dashboard. There's no limit to how this resource environment that we have here can then be repurposed and delivered into different composite outlets. And I think you can see that the vision we have for this is that software development doesn't have to be the domain of software developers. In a resource-oriented worldview, we care about information first and not software. And what we're doing is we're surfacing up the information, and in a constrained contextual way, such that it doesn't require software developer skills in order to expose this information to someone who can re-engineer the information that they want to have in their system. And of course the job of the software developer becomes one of creating safe the black box, the logic inside the system that talks to the databases, talks to the data sources, etc. And then exposes it in a nice clean way with the documentation to the end users. And what we see is that software in this environment is able to extend out from, the sales guy probably is able to deal with spreadsheets, and that's his programming environment. Now we're being able to say, look, we can actually develop the information processes that you want in the business by giving you the components you require, and then allowing you to just compose them at will.